Welcome to Parenthood Bites, the podcast where we explore life as a parent in tech. I'm your host, Chow, and I have over 15 years of experience in tech, and I'm also currently working as a career coach. I'm the proud mother of 3 incredible boys. In each episode, we have an inspiring guest who will share their remarkable story. You'll find their wisdom and insights both relatable and enriching, because after all, we're all in this parenting journey together. So grab your favorite drink, get cozy, and let's dive into today's episode. Hi everyone, welcome to episode 48 of Parenthood Bites. We're here today with Len Scalero, who is a senior manager at Walmart Connect. He's also the co-host of the podcast Gen X Guys. We spoke with his co-host James Williams on episode 40. Hi Len, how are you today?
Pretty good, you?
I'm good. Thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. And we're recording this after Labor Day weekend. Did you have a good weekend?
Not too bad. A lot of work around the house, but yeah, not too bad. How about you?
It was good, but it was pretty hot. I won't lie. And I feel like as the kids get older, they kind of just don't want to do that much. And so I'm like,
It doesn't
you guys
change.
want to go out? Right? Does your kids too? Like, it's like you want to go somewhere. They just rather just sit there. Even if I'm like, no electronics, they'd rather just sit there than go out.
It doesn't change. Because you have 3 boys, right?
Yeah.
And so do I. And even though they're in their 20s, my kids are 27, 24, and 21. So they're essentially just about 5 years from oldest to youngest. The 27-year-old, he just turned 27 in July. So, but yeah, they're 2.5 years apart. But yeah, it doesn't really change much as they get older. And I'm sure your husband, it's even with the fathers, it's the same thing. It's we don't change. It's just our toys change.
Yeah.
Our interests change. But it's the same thing.
And I would argue sometimes the toys are the same too.
In our house, it is.
Yeah.
It definitely it is still the same thing. Still games and so on. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm starting to see there being intersections between the toys my husband wants and the toys my kids wants, and so it works out, I guess, for all of them, except for me, because nobody wants Hello Kitty toys. Nobody.
Yeah, but you were a gamer, weren't you? Or are you still?
I play games, but not like.
Not really.
Yeah.
Yeah, my wife was a gamer. She doesn't really do it much anymore.
And plus, like, they like to play, like, Roblox or, I could play Minecraft with them when they played it because we used to play at IGN. So
I remember that, yeah.
Yeah, I could play
It
Minecraft.
first came out.
Yeah, but then there's so many other things added to it now. I'm just like, what's going on?
Yeah, it's very different from when we first saw it. Very, very different.
Yeah, but at least I could tell stories of like, hey, I was around when it was
remember
beta.
when.
Yeah, and it was only $15.99 or whatever.
Yep. I remember that way back when.
Yeah. So you said your kids are 27, 24, 21. That's kind of around like the age gaps for my kids. Similar.
Okay.
It's 5 years between the oldest and the very youngest. Just smaller versions.
Yeah, but it wasn't that long ago. They don't change that much as they get older. Their relationships stay about the same. Like I can say that, like for my sons, they've always been very close, which has been a good thing.
That's awesome.
They've always had very similar interests, similar personalities. It's crazy how different they are, but how similar they can be. Being in the same house, they're very unique, but everybody else sees them as being identical. But you're like, no, it's not that simple.
Yeah, like when I ask them, what do you want for dinner? It's always everybody wants something different. But then when it's doing something else, everybody wants the same thing.
Same thing.
So exactly what you said. We're seeing that a lot.
So different, but so similar. But it's always been good. They've always been close in terms of how they act towards one another, and their interests are usually around the same thing. So it was always good.
That's awesome. That's like what I want to continue to see with my boys. Was there anything you did to kind of foster that relationship?
Lock them into rooms. No.
Force them to get along.
I don't know. I mean, we've had that conversation because you have even parents and teachers over the years will ask that type of question because they'll see their interactions, and those people will ask that. I mean, sure, like you've seen it. Other parents will ask things, both good and bad. But I don't know. I think it's also just how my wife and I are. We've always been big on family. Like that was one of the ties that bound us together in terms of before we even got married. And I think just that interaction is how we act. Kids always reflect it. And I think parents, a lot of times they miss that your kids are a reflection of how you are. And so just how close she was with her, definitely like her sister's her best friend. And then her brother may not like that they're that close, but they're so close. And then my brothers and I are close. Like my younger brother's handicapped, so he's always lived with us or between us. And so I just think the interactions that we did, thankfully, one of those positive things reflected onto them. I just think also just how they are, personality wise, which is a good thing. I think sometimes it happens organically without, there's nothing you really can do. Sometimes just their personalities have to mesh, and thankfully their personalities really have.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
I mean, right now, my kids, they get along, they play well together. But of course, sometimes they
there's times that
argue and things like that. But for the most
always.
part, they enjoy being with each other. Like my youngest, he's just fine with his brothers without having
Yep,
to set up play dates. So I'm like, oh, good, I can save on
so much easier.
right. It helped a lot during the pandemic, right? When you couldn't go see anyone. And it was like, well, at least they
Yeah,
have each other. But in the
yep,
back of my mind, I'm like, okay, how do I keep that going as
going.
they grow older?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's I don't know how you really foster it, except just
Just showing them, right, that
yeah, just show them
being in
by
that
example.
environment.
Yeah, I think it's also, and you'll see it through the years where like friends of my sons, you'll see maybe not parents pitting kids against one another, but special treatment, and you can see that they become a little estranged. So maybe the one thing you can also do is how you treat them. That you're not treating one above the other, but you're also not forcing an equality between them. Whereas parents sometimes want to be so fair that it becomes forced. I think that's also another thing. It's like, I guess you look at the mistakes they make, right? When one does something wrong, you have to treat them a certain way. You need to be fair, but if one does it occasionally and then another does it all the time, you have to handle it in a different manner. So it's always that hard balance. I always say that as a parent, you're always wrong. You never make the right decision, but you just have to do the best you can.
Yeah. And that is the best, right? That is the best.
Yeah.
Is you do what you can and you keep going.
Yeah. Try to be fair, but you also have to make sure that you're treating them as individuals. So it's a hard balancing act.
Yeah, absolutely. So, what brought you to a career in tech?
So I started out at college as a history major, and then finding out like that Indiana Jones is not a career. You kind of learn that really quick. That really the only goal is to be a teacher, which wouldn't have been a bad thing. But I was working as a personal trainer at that time, so I kind of started going that path. I was a horrible student, so I was the one who had a semester of A's and then semester of F's. So just trying to find my way. Met my wife, my future wife, and then I was looking to get into a long-term profession. And at that time, James was actually working at PlayStation. He had started about a month before I did, but we had like a mutual friend that was working there, and also my future brother-in-law was working there.
Wow.
So I went into PlayStation and at customer service, but then I ended up applying for and getting a job as an admin for their CRM solution. And so then I became a DBA and doing like reports, SQL type stuff, just a lot of the basic stuff to maintain the system. Then I went to real estate, which I ended up getting into it part-time and then full-time about a year before the crash happened. So perfect timing.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that was a rough time. My wife wasn't working at that time, trying to focus with the kids and everything. And everything was going good for about a year. But then when the bottom dropped off, it was like a cliff. It was constant work for a month. And then about a month later, just no work at all. And that's when IGM come up. I was actually about to take another job as a DBA, and James was at IGN, and I didn't really want the job that I was looking at. It looked very boring. But yeah, and then he got me into IGN when I had no experience, not just with online it was for online advertising, but I actually had no experience with. When I went through the interview, Anwar was the hiring manager, who you probably remember, and like he knew I had no experience, but like he even asked me, like, how does the web service work? Like when a page makes a request, what happens? And I was like, I have no idea. But basically, James said that he knew I could do the job, and they went off of him. And 15 years later, I'm still doing it. So I guess he was right.
So you clearly could do the job.
Clearly, yeah, at a certain point.
That's really neat that you moved along in all these different
Yeah, it was a journey.
directions. That's pretty cool. And
Yeah,
eventually just back to tech.
yeah. I just found it's also, I've kind of stuck on the operations end more of tech just because it's what I like doing. It's actually, if I won the lottery, I wouldn't be doing it. But if I'm going to be doing it, this is something I actually enjoy doing it. Like figuring out the operational issues and finding out solutions and things. It's been really good.
The second best thing under winning the lottery.
Second method, yeah. But I definitely, I would definitely quit if I won a decent amount of money.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
So, where in all of this timeline did you have your first kid?
My oldest son was born in 97, and I started at PlayStation in 96. So right afterwards. He was born shortly after I became the admin for the CRM. So pretty much his whole life, or at least my whole tech career, has been when he's been alive. So it's been on and off for 27 years. But yeah, that's when it started.
Oh, that's neat.
Yeah.
And so, what was the parental leave like there, if you remember?
No, there wasn't any. It was 3 days.
There wasn't
Yeah.
any. Oh gosh, that's
He was born on a Thursday night, and I went back to work on Tuesday. It was just like 3 days. And that was all my sons were born when I was at PlayStation. So, and there was,
so all of it you didn't have parental leave.
nope, no parental leave.
How did you how did you survive? Like
Well, that's a good question. I don't know. I mean, actually, it's not how did I survive, it's how my wife did. I mean,
yeah. I
it's,
mean,
yeah, as you know, it was rough. I mean, it wasn't, I did take off some time, but you just had your personal time to take off. There was no parental leave. So I don't know how she did it.
did she have a leave at that
She
time?
had leave at that time, yeah. With my oldest and youngest, she actually took off time from work afterwards. So I think she took at least a year off for both of them. The middle son, unfortunately, at that time, she had to go back to work relatively soon. But we also had her family. So again, having the close family helped a lot. She had an aunt who was able to help watch our son. So daycare for us was something that we didn't, when they were young, that we didn't have to really worry about, which was really helpful. And again, having family be able to watch your kids is a major upside. So really,
Yeah, that's amazing. And
yeah,
then it also helps with the relationship with family as well, the
exactly, yeah,
kids. But yeah, I mean, by the second, you're still okay, two kids, but then by the third, you're outnumbered, right?
yeah.
And so it's
And they're
like,
still young because 5 years old is
right.
still. I mean, 5 years old, it's they have their own challenges. It's just, yeah, that was an interesting time, and I'm sure you remember that time, just like, or like when your oldest is like 6 and the one is about one, and it's an awesome time though. I think the hard part is sometimes you forget to enjoy it. You look back at those videos for us, and there's one we have that will. I mean, I probably look at it once every 6 months. It was an opening for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and they would dance to the theme. And so it's the type of thing recording it, and just remember seeing them like that, where the 1 year old is just bouncing, and the other two are doing boy
Oh,
things. But yeah, exactly. It's just one of those things. But there's just a lot of those times where those are amazing years, and even though you do enjoy them, there's still a lot of stuff. It's like it's the forest for the trees. Sometimes you miss a lot.
yeah, that really resonates with me because when you're going through it, you're so exhausted, you're so tired,
Hmm.
you're not enjoying as much as you want to. It's kind of a blur. And then when I look back at the videos, I'm just like, oh my gosh, those are such sweet moments,
Yeah.
and they didn't have any worries, no worries about schoolwork, nothing. It was just like focused on singing this song or doing this dance. Didn't care who's watching
Nope.
them. And now I'm like, hey, do a dance. They're like,
No.
yeah, no,
No.
that's not happening.
They're
Like, you want to see a video of you doing dance?
Yeah.
No. Like,
They still do that. Like they just we'll show it and they're just like shaking their head, or like show a girlfriend. That's even better is when they get girlfriends and then you show a girlfriend. So you get to be that turn eventually.
that's
Yeah.
amazing. My brother-in-law, he said he wants to save it to show at their wedding.
Right.
He's like, I have a slideshow ready to go.
Exactly. You have to have that. And it's also cool because I just, growing up in the 80s and, 70s, 80s, I mean, most of your memories are just single pictures. Here's
Yeah,
Christmas, here's Easter, here's this other event, a graduation. But for us in the 2000s and, cameras, and you didn't have to get film processed. You didn't have to develop film. So having digital was a huge thing for parents because you can just record at will and not have to worry about it. Take multiple pictures.
yeah. And you can do it so much more frequently,
Yeah.
right? You just got to worry about the memory on your phone, but
Yeah.
that's it.
That's easy to manage.
Right. Like I always forget to develop the film. Like I think I still have a roll of from my wedding. We had like the disposable
Disposable
cameras.
cameras, yeah.
I still have them. I don't know if they'll work, but
But yeah,
I don't know if they'll even develop it. I should try it.
yeah, it couldn't hurt to try. The worst thing that happens is it just comes back blank. But yeah, it's just funny because we still have all those pictures, and now we're figuring out like, okay, do we have to make digital copies of them? How do we want to do it?
Yeah, yeah, that's true. So you said for childcare you had your wife's family help, or did you send them to daycare, preschool, or anything?
We did both. So, especially when they were younger, they were at my in-laws' house. At that time, it was one of her aunts would watch them. And then later on, as they got closer to kindergarten age, they went to preschool. We wanted them to have that ease into the environment, not just the social interactions, but also just, the getting used to going off of a certain schedule. Because, of course, their aunt is going to baby them, or great aunt, they're going to baby them. So having them have to eat at a certain time, sit down and do things, it didn't always translate to kindergarten, but, you had to try, at least
At
try.
least start
Yeah, so we did a combination. Yeah.
getting used to that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, how has your work life changed since you became a parent?
You just have to worry more about your time. Like you said earlier, like that whole thing of you're going to drop your kids off at daycare and making sure one of you is there to pick them up at a certain time. But as you know, in tech, just something will break, something will come up. And I think that's one of the hard parts in tech is it just, there's always something that breaks, always something that pops up that you got to deal with. And worked out with my wife that she's not in tech. She works at an administrator at a college nearby as at the registrar's office. So there was always that understanding that sometimes I'm going to have to work extra. So there was always that working on the flexibility. I think that's kind of one thing we agreed upon, maybe not agreed upon, but that we worked through is I would kind of do the work part of it, try to make sure the career and do that to give her more of the flexibility at home. And that's also what she wanted. She was, she still is the oldest sister and everything, and she always played that role. And so I think being a mom was always also more important for her than a career. So that also makes it a lot easier that we weren't both fighting for a career. She wanted to be at home. She wanted to raise kids, and that's what she really wanted. So it definitely worked out, but it made it a lot easier knowing that it wasn't this trying to juggle like, okay, well, I have to do this and you have to do this. How are we going to make this work? It made it a lot easier. I wouldn't say easier for me, but I think it made it easier on us as a family, but there were times where I would have to stay at work late or deal with things. And it also meant that I missed out on it. I think a lot of times people might look at like if one parent is off at work, that burden falls on the other parent that stays home because it's not always, the man works and the woman stays home nowadays, which is good. But I think that, you kind of forget that I wanted to be there. So, I think it was just the way that it ended up working out for us. So.
Right, because there is that aspect where you're missing out on those milestones or that experience.
Yeah, in the end, it's for the kids. When you're a parent, I just think that the whole thing about the balance of work life and everything, it all comes down to not just what I want or my wife wants, it's ultimately what the family needs. And that was always the hard part to balance.
The best thing for the family, which will change over time as well as they grow up, right?
Well, yeah, like when your sons get to high school, it's going to completely change. And high school, by the way, it goes by so fast.
Yeah, my oldest just started ninth grade, and I'm like, oh gosh, because I feel like middle school just went by really quickly. So
nothing goes by faster than high school.
oh no.
I mean, in a blink, just because of how much it changes for them and their development. I mean, he's at puberty, and then there's just the relationship he's going to get with classmates. Then the challenges. 2 years, you're going to be thinking about college. It's not that far away because you have to be all prepared before senior year.
Yeah.
Senior year is the easy year. Honestly, senior year is nothing.
Right, because you've already applied. It's already done deal.
We've already done everything. So high school goes by in a blink. That I think is the one, as much as I said like the first 5-6 years go by quickly, I think high school goes a little bit faster. It really is a blink. And before you know it, they're
gone.
Accepted to colleges and getting ready to leave.
Yeah, I think we're at that stage where I'm like, hey, let's start thinking about what we need to prepare for college. It's like, I don't want to start thinking about it this early, but we have to. Everybody's already, people are asking us, what extracurricular activities is he in? And he's like, I don't want to do anything because he has a lot of homework. And I get that, but so it's that balance for him too.
And it's so different from when we were in, the 90s and even in 2000s. I mean, how do you separate yourself nowadays? When you look at what people are presenting for college, I don't understand how, I don't understand how some of these kids actually do it. I don't know what drugs they take or what they do, but like you said, I mean, he has so much homework and then if you have them, they can also get pigeonholed in certain extracurricular activities. If they do a sport or some other activity, that can take up so much of their time when they get in high school. And it's like, how could they do anything else? You want them to still enjoy high school and get something out of it. So it's a hard balance.
Yeah, I mean, my son's telling me about his classmate selling stocks or like doing some things, and I'm just like, oh,
wow,
okay, why don't we enjoy our, high school life right now? You'll have plenty of time to do that when you grow up. Sure, you can learn about it if you're interested, but I don't want my kid to be getting ready for some financial calls. Like my friend can't come over; he has financial call. What?
I mean, I remember with my middle son, he was the best student out of all of them. But like junior year, him coming back home from football practice, and then he had AP history. And you know how AP classes are, it's just so much homework. And just kind of helping him go through it and kind of knowing, being a history major, just basically answer the questions for him, but he had to write it out in his own words. But it was that type of thing, just seeing that. And then it's 11 o'clock and we're both at the dining room table and he's dying, but finishing up and then going to bed. And then he wants a break. And so he doesn't do anything the next semester, but is it hurting him for college? And it's hard because you want what's best for them for the future. But there's also the present you have to worry about and finding that balance. So yeah, it's always rough.
It sounds like maybe I just try a couple of things, see how he does, and then gradually see.
Oh, definitely. And I think that's another thing that you learn in college is their interests will change. You start to have them take certain classes or they meet certain friends and their interests will change. Like what was so important, them playing basketball so much and going through AAU and all these other things, none of them even wanted to. I mean, they didn't have the height or anything, but still, basketball just like wasn't interest anymore. Like, okay, so why did we do all of that stuff with basketball? But it all adds up to it. But it's just interesting how they'll change and how they evolve and start becoming adults.
Dude, we have so much Harry Potter stuff, like wands and hats and books, and then one
Okay, wait,
day
by the
they
way,
didn't want to do it.
you can't really see it. Hold on.
Whoa!
So that's the Deathly Hallows. For those of you who aren't watching the video, and it's
He
for
has
my
it on
son.
his arm.
Yeah, I have the Deathly Hallows. And it's for my three sons.
That's
But yeah,
so
we're a
cool.
huge Harry Potter family. Look, you're not going to lose the wands. You're not going to lose. We still have the box sets. We still have all the books. Yeah, we still go to Harry Potter world. So yeah, no, that doesn't change. Something's open.
But see, they had that phase, and then we went to Harry Potter World. We did all that, and then now they're kind of like, it's all right.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna throw it away because
they'll come back to it.
we spent money on it. It's a lot
Yeah,
of good stuff, but I feel like maybe eventually they'll come back to it.
they do.
They go through all of this Pokemon too, and with
Mhm.
Pokemon phase, Marvel phase. Where else is just
Okay, Marvel phase won't leave either, because they're still in Marvel. For my kids, it was Yu-Gi-Oh more so than
oh,
Pokemon.
oh.
I'll still look around the house and we'll still find decks of Yu-Gi-Oh cards laying around. So yeah, and then if something comes up, even at 27 years old, my son will like want to sing along with it, or like he'll stop him like, "Ooh!" Like I showed him like a video on TikTok that had the new Yu-Gi-Oh card dispenser, and he was like, "Why do I want that?" So, they do kind of fall out of it, but it's never going to leave them fully.
Yeah,
They'll always,
that's good. That's
yeah,
good.
it is. They'll still come back.
I will say we kind of tried to brainwash them with Marvel when they were little. That was when Marvel wasn't didn't have that many movies and stuff. We would put it
Yeah,
all in their room. And they didn't appreciate it, just didn't like it, wanted like
it is what it is.
ABCs or animals or something. And now
Yeah,
they're appreciating the Marvel stickers and all of that.
yeah,
Now it's like, oh, wow. I'm like, yeah,
I
see?
would like it. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. We've been waiting for years and finally.
yeah.
So, what would you say has been your biggest struggle or challenge being a parent in tech?
Like I said, I think it's just the time. We all know in tech, the pay is good. Tech pays well, but there's a price to pay with that. And especially on the operations end. When I was at PlayStation, we always had to work Christmas Day. So since I supported the call center and everybody in the call center had to work almost a full day, I had to be in at least for 4 hours. So while they were young, I had to leave home and then come back. And then here, even at Walmart, again, during holiday season, it's a little more, I don't really do a lot of the escalation support anymore, but we still have to be there during that time in case anything happens. It may be not full time during Thanksgiving or whatever, but it is some things you really can't take holidays and so on. So I think in tech, there's always that need depending upon what field you're in. But I do think overall it's the time, just those hours. And also where we have to work. I mean, being able to work remotely in tech over the last few years has been great, but I mean, we're being hit with a return to office where we're losing a lot of people because it's being dictated that people have to return to office. And so there's also a thing, unfortunately, if you want to be in tech, you have to live in certain areas, whether it's Bay Area, Austin, or whatever, but it's still usually not a cheap area to live in. Wherever tech is, prices unfortunately always just go up. So it's like, yes, you're making that money, but you also need to make that money to live where you're living.
To survive.
Yeah, just to survive. Yeah.
So, are you going back to hybrid or fully in office?
We're hybrid right now. Well, we're pretty much back to office, but we've been doing about 3 to 4 days a week. Overall, especially my org's been pretty flexible with it.
Oh, that's good.
But the mandate has been return to office. But I think it's kind of going back to where it was in the past. And, in tech, you know how Fridays are. Most tech places, Like offices are,
Work from home Fridays.
yeah, Fridays have always been those days where people kind of took advantage of it. But again, just being what our job is, being able to work remotely, as long as you're able to come in the office when needed. Overall, it's been a return office, but I think it's been pretty manageable.
Gotcha. So you talked about sort of your biggest struggle as a parent in tech, but what about, with your kids' current ages of 27, 24, 21? What are your biggest struggles with those ages?
Your relationship changes. Not I think for the best. I made a post on LinkedIn. My middle son, he was working for the USDA for on a contract. He was working as part of in Hawaii for tracking fruit fly migration patterns. So they had these grids where they would put traps down. And it was really a matter of how to optimize the grids. And it was written in Java. It wasn't very scalable. And he talked to me about he wanted to go to his boss and say he wanted to write it in Python and change it up, make it more scalable, and so on. I think the weird part was it was just talking to him as like a mentor and a peer rather than a father and son. Because when it came to some of the stuff he was talking about, I couldn't keep up with him. He went to Berkeley in data science, so he has that education, and he was trying to explain things to me, and some of it was going over my head. But being able to relay some of the stuff, how you present it, how you go to your boss, how do you show the value in it, how do you show the lift and the effort that it takes to build this, and the time savings and kind of going through all that. It was just an experience, but it was really weird because it was talking to him like I was talking to one of my direct reports. But it was cool seeing him as a different person. Like I said, there's these stages that your kids go through. There's a obvious elementary school years, but junior high school, and into the beginning years of college is another phase. That's when they're the young adult phase, I guess you can say it. But now, as he's graduated, he's not that anymore. Even though there's still pieces of that younger kid in him still, when you start talking to him as a mentor and a peer, it just and my oldest son, he has a degree in mechanical engineering, so even talking to him about changing jobs or changing, like if you wanted to go out of mechanical engineering and go more into a CS role, but just talking to him about the challenges and like what he's dealing with and things like that. It's cool to see that they're becoming adults, not young adults, but actual adults now. But yeah, I think it's just weird seeing that. It's great, but it's scary also. It's scary because you're, as a parent, you're trying to set them up to be adults. I mean, ultimately, that's your ultimate goal is make sure they live, survive when they're younger, right? Just proper nutrition, get them through basic school and all that type of stuff. And then the fun part of high school where they're smarter than you, but they're really not. But then the college and post-college is now it's like, you're talking about real stuff and not just theoretical anymore. And I think that's, like I said, that's probably along the lines of that peer thing. It's not, oh, when you graduate or think about your future. It's you talk to them now about finances, like the mistakes we made in finance. I was raised by an immigrant. So her idea of savings was saving money, cash. So like I didn't know how to deal with credit cards. I didn't know how to deal with retirement. I didn't know how to deal with any of that type of stuff. And so kind of impressing them on them now, and not again, oh, when you get a job, you want to start saving money. It's now that you have a job, you want to do IRAs and you want to do this, you want to start investing in the long term and kind of going just all those things. And again, it's not theoretical anymore. This is what you should be doing. But it's great. I mean, again, it's just one of those evolutions of being a parent.
That's awesome. So, like all the things you've been kind of trying to guide them on over the years, it's like they're all becoming real, becoming practical
Yeah,
advice. And then they're coming to you as a peer, and less as like you showing the way. You're just helping them and supporting them.
yeah,
That's really, really neat.
it is. It's really cool.
And I think like it's really neat that you have that close relationship with them, that they
Yeah,
can come to you with those things too. Because that's definitely what I want to have with my kids. Even like now with the oldest one being high school, I'm just like, high school is a scary
yeah.
place. And I want him to be able to tell me even now, like just anything that goes on, if he's comfortable with it.
That's the hard part. And it's based upon your relationship with them. Like I said, they have to be able to trust you. I think that's like one of the most important things is that they can trust you. And if they trust you, and it's not, I don't know how to put it, but it's not just you giving in to them or you always being it. It's also you being. They know that if you're pumping them up as well. Like sometimes you have to say the tough love, but you have to make sure that you're saying it from a place where you understand. Like that they know that you're going to be honest with them. And I think that it's harder when they're younger, but I think when they get older, they know that if you say this to them, whether it's positive or negative, it's the truth and you're being honest. And it's coming from a place of you understand them. But yeah, again, it goes back to the whole thing of being a parent. You're always wrong. You're always trying to find the best balance.
Yeah, yeah. So I think that kind of dovetails nicely into my next question, which is like, because three boys, similar age gaps. What would you say were the hardest ages?
I would say it's around puberty. I'm not sure if you saw with your son, but before that, they're mama's boys. I mean, it's it's just that closeness with her. It was just that. But once they start changing, there's a little bit change in the dynamic. Not saying that they shun their mom. They don't. They never did that. But I think they just would come to me a lot more often when they started to get like right around that puberty, right around seventh, eighth grade, and it happened with all three of them and the same type of thing. Like right when that started happening, you can just see the dynamic changing. They also start to emulate, obviously, whoever they're. It's not that simple, of course, but with the boys, they wanted to be more like dad, so they started doing things. And you also have to. That's also like a slippery slope because I think they wanted to do sports mainly because I did sports, and they did well. But I think there was also other things that they wanted to do, but they kind of also felt the desire to want to please me in that way as well. They could get my approval. So yeah, there's always those challenges because then it's just like, holy crap! Now the burden, kind of like the mom gets just the boy love. It may hurt a lot of times. It may be the teasing or the making fun of it and everything, but it's just how boys will show love. It became a little bit of a burden, but it was something I wouldn't trade for the world. But it just became like the dynamic changed and just, it became more of they wanted my guidance. So it was rough in that respect just because sometimes you're just not ready for it. It's just one of those things where, again, the mistakes that you made growing up. That was, I think, the hardest part, where they start making your mistakes and you start seeing that happen and you want to stop. You don't want them to do it. And sometimes it comes off bad.
Yeah. And it's that balance of how much do you let go versus trying to tell them, because sometimes you tell them they're going to actually go the other way with your warning.
You're 100% right. I think the letting go is the biggest lesson I had to learn, especially with the oldest son. He's brilliant, but they all unfortunately got for me ADD. And it's mainly the attention part and it's mainly the focus that they don't have. They never really had the hyperactive. But like for him, it was just, I think elementary school and getting into junior high was some of the hardest years for him. But I don't think at that time I also made it any better. Just because I started feeling that, like you said, the letting go. I so bad didn't want him doing what I did and going down that path that I pushed. And the hardest thing is, and as a parent, is like for him, he was almost impossible to discipline. Because if you went to discipline, it was like, you're right, I'm a bad kid. He was that type. And it wasn't feeling sorry for himself. He was like, yeah, I'm doing something wrong. I don't know why I'm doing it. I'm sorry. And it's like, as a parent, you're like, that crushes you. It's not just hard to discipline, but it's also hard to take. But
it's heartbreaking
to
hear that.
But like you said, at a certain point, you kind of have to let go because I think the pushing made it worse. That pushing, that desperation to help him, unfortunately, it can have the opposite effect. And I think letting him go and just letting him, look, be great in math. You suck in creative writing. When it came to like things like writing, putting pen to paper, he could never do it. Math never had an issue. So letting that go and just be like, all right, you suck in that. Let's not worry about it. It's not your strength. Let's just focus on your strength. And once we did that with him, like he started to come into his own and, it got better. But letting go is a big one. Of my own insecurities, it was a big one.
Yeah, I think that's something I'm slowly starting to see and like trying to hold myself back, like give myself a few seconds before I say, or else I'll say a thing and I'm like, well, no, I gotta let it. Yeah.
And another thing, it was also hard because being a bad student, I could relate to him. I could relate to what he felt when he was not able to focus on work or not be able to write. My wife was valedictorian and she went to Berkeley for English. So she was that student. When I see her, she still has her notebooks from college. And like her notes are those ones I'm like, did you pay for this? Because it has that perfect indentation, the margins, and I'm like,
right, just really neat, organized.
I'm like looking like it's impossible. I always joke like, no, you paid for this. But I think for her the hard part was she couldn't relate to him. And there's that thing, empathy only gets you so far. So at a certain point, like with her, I'm like, just be a mom. Give him the hug, make him feel better. You can't relate to what he's going through.
Right, support.
So I think, for both of us, I mean, for her as well, I think it was hard because it would come off wrong as well because she would get that, I don't know how to help you. She can't relate to it. So I think for her, it was like kind of the opposite. She just had to, well, maybe not the opposite, but same as letting go, but, and then supporting in the way she could do, which was just the emotional side. I think that helped him a lot and it helped the younger ones as well because unfortunately, sometimes for the oldest, they're the guinea pig, but you learn.
Yeah. But I think that's a huge tip that you said, a huge thing, because like sometimes we aren't going to know how to help them, how to support them, and they're not going to know how to tell us what to do. And so what we can do is just let them know we're there for them for whatever support they need, right? And just having that emotional support. Because like you said, especially with the oldest one, they're the first one to encounter a lot of things. And so it's harder.
definitely.
So I know this is something we're always working on, but like, what do you do for work-life balance?
It was funny because I think, again, going back to how it's changed when they were younger, and James and I have talked about this during our podcast, is I think our midlife crisis, I think him and I are very similar in this way. Our midlife crisis is, what do we do now? Because so much of your life is taken up with them. I mean, it's not just, people think of, the extracurriculars going from practice to practice, but it's also doing their laundry, making sure there's food in the house, there's snacks, there's breakfast for them. It's like, now if they don't have breakfast, to go to McDonald's, you have your car, go drive, go get it, things like that. But
Yeah.
during that time, your whole life is enveloped with them, and now it's just totally changed. Where at this point now, you don't know what to do with yourself, and sometimes I think if I make my wife and I kind of just get into a zone of not doing anything because it's like you don't have to.
There's nobody waiting for.
Yeah, but we still, my in-laws live with us, so we still have them to. We're not saying we're babysitting them, but if you have retirees in your house, it's its own different challenges. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think that's the hard part, is that whole challenge of trying to figure out who you are now when you're not really that father anymore. Also, my youngest son graduated in 2021, so he graduated during the pandemic. So there was also just not really that transition because he didn't have a senior year in school. His junior year, oh no, 22. His junior year was when the pandemic started, and then his senior year was 100% in the pandemic. So he was 100% remote. He didn't even walk on stage. It was all, remote. And I think that's something that we're dealing with as just in our phase of being parents, is that we never had that transition or the standard transition. I mean, they went through their own stuff, but for us, it's like we're kind of at that stage now. It's like, okay, now what do we do? We're traveling, but it's just very different.
Yeah, yeah. And you have more time also to think about what you're going to do.
Yeah,
Right? Yeah,
yeah.
because like you said, all that mental space is filled with what are they going to bring for lunch tomorrow? Breakfast? Did they do
Yep.
their homework? Did they brush their teeth? Like,
Stupid little things.
yeah, on the weekends they take their PE clothes out to wash and like just all these things
Yep.
that like once that's all gone, I feel like I definitely will go through that of like, what do I
It's
do
like a work
now?
girl.
Yeah, I have a neighbor. She's like, all my kids moved out, so she got a dog because she was like, I need to take care of something. She's like, I need someone to need me, so the dog is perfect.
We started transitioning to travel. Like the weirdest part was in 2022, we really took our first vacation without kids. That was really, really, really weird.
So different. Oh my gosh.
Because yeah, I mean, just I you can't even explain the difference of going on. Like we went to Korea for like 2.5 weeks, almost 3 weeks, and it was just crazy because I found out that I like wandering around, just like aimlessly walking, like doing like 50,000 steps a day. But it was like weird coming back to the hotel at 1 o'clock in the morning. Then my wife would wake up at 8 and go to a coffee shop or something like that. But not having to get everybody ready for breakfast or something like that, or okay, well, we want to get to the park. For us it was always Disneyland or something like that, and not having to do that was just, it was really weird.
That's crazy. And then you see the families, right? You see the parents of the young kids, and you're like,
Yeah.
nope, we're done with that part.
Yeah. I mean, like James and I we would go to Disneyland together as families, and like having the double stroller, that's one thing I don't miss. I don't miss diaper bags. And there's one thing I don't miss, and I always will tell people, I do not miss diaper bags.
Yeah.
I don't miss having a diaper bag, especially when you have two diaper bags. You have the big one and you have the small one, and then you go out and you realize all the diapers are in the big one and you have none in the small one, or
The wipes
the,
are in
the
the
wipes.
other
Yeah,
one.
you don't have something, or you don't have an extra pair of pants.
Because you always need an extra pair of pants. When you don't have it,
Yeah,
that's when you need it. That's always
exactly.
how it
And
works.
it's always somewhere else that you're not. It's in this bag. Oh well, we drove this car, or we had this, and yeah.
Yeah, and then if you have it, then it gets on your clothes, and you're like, okay, well, I obviously didn't bring something for myself. I remember that we would always just bring like so much stuff in the diaper bag, but also toys for the older kids and like drawing pads, stickers, just so they could be occupied during just one meal, so they wouldn't be the ones screaming.
Do you have a minivan?
Of course.
Okay. We still actually have one, like mainly because it's like easier for my in-laws to get in and out of. But it's just one of those things. That's, only parents will understand how
It's amazing.
beautiful a minivan is. Yeah, they're so utility. I mean, it's just how much stuff they can store and how easy it is to get in and out of. Like the SUV debate, I'm like, no, it was always minivan.
No, that door just sliding out, like
And then the back for the storage.
the trunk opening. Just automatic, like what's better than that? And both of us used to have two-door cars. So we both had little cars. And then when we had kids, it was like, okay, now we got to get rid of one car, now the other. And first we moved to SUV. And then as we had more kids, it was like, well, now we're going to have to be
Yeah.
minivan people, and we didn't want to be, right? We didn't want to be. But then
Yep.
when we got it, first day, it was like, oh my God, where were you all my life? Why didn't we get it
Yep.
earlier?
It's so true. It is so true. I mean, once you get one, you realize it's the space, and I mean, they get really dirty, but still,
But it's okay. We have a silver one.
that's what we have too.
So we're
Yeah.
like, it's fine. That's the trick, right? Silver one with gray
Yep.
seats. No one will know.
Except when they drop the crackers and you see the beige crumbs all over the place.
Yeah.
It's what it is. You expect it with a minivan, though. You expect minivans to have food and all that all over the place.
Right. But it goes with you everywhere. It goes on all your adventures and the memories in the minivan. I'm like, we can't get anything else.
A trip we took when it was, I can't remember where we were going, but it was just two of my sons. I think it was the middle and the youngest. I think the oldest was still at school. But we took out down the rear seats, and the two middle seats we put all the way back. So when they were driving, they were like in business class, when they were driving down. So we got the middle, and they were just, they just had so much space, and they had the cooler between them, and they were just happy.
See, that's the other awesome thing. You can move the seats around and make it whatever layout you want.
Yep.
So it's like, today I want it together. Today I want a little hall in the middle. Like, do whatever you want.
And then when you go to Costco, you put down the rear seats, and you can put so much in the back.
Costco trips are just the best with the minivan.
Spend $500-$600, but you definitely, again, going back to the minivan, you have the space. It's easy.
Yeah, at least you could bring it home while you're sad about how much you spent, but you have space.
You get the hot dog. So
yeah, for sure. That makes it worth it.
that makes it worth it.
So what helps you relax or unwind?
Still play video games. So I think one thing about like our generation is like my generation, when we first started getting video games, adults didn't play video games. But I think now that stigma is kind of gone. So I still play. My sons are all gamers, so I still play League of Legends, Civilization, a few of the game, just different variety of games. So, but also planning for travel. I think that's like the one thing. If my wife and I have done anything, is we've probably traveled more in terms of miles and everything in the last 3 to 4 years than we did in our life. Just going to a bunch of different places, like mainly international, mostly to Asia. So, like we're going to Japan in 4 weeks. My youngest niece is studying abroad in Japan. So there was a sale on some tickets, and we decided to go for a 5-day trip.
That's amazing. And is it just the two of you as well?
Just the two of us, yeah. Well, we were looking at it like it was for our anniversary, and so we were thinking about doing New York, but then we realized for these tickets to Japan, it was only $200 more a person.
Why not?
Exactly. Yeah, and Japan's cheaper when you actually get there, much cheaper, especially the food. So we decided to go out there, and we're actually going to the Philippines for 2 weeks in February. So I think planning for travel has been the next biggest thing that we've been doing. So doing the rewards miles and saving up points and everything has been maybe a little bit of a hobby now.
Yeah, that's really, really neat.
Yeah.
Having those experiences. Yeah. And
especially while we still can. It's like, I think we're still able-bodied and being able to move around freely. So we want to make sure that we do it while we can, be able to enjoy it now. So.
Right. And to your point earlier, like it's so much easier to take pictures, take videos now. So you can do all of that so easily too.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So the last thing I wanted to ask is just what's something that you would tell someone who's planning to have kids, or something you wish you knew before you had kids?
I think it goes back to enjoy it while you can. Don't ever forget to be in the moment. I mean, I think that's, if there's one piece of advice, those 2-year-old years are just phenomenal. And like when you see a 2-year-old now, it's so easy to remember that when one of the best things ever with a child is when they're learning how to talk, where they're talking to you and they're speaking gibberish, but they think that they're actually saying something.
And they're so serious about it, right?
And they're so serious about it. And it's that time where that learning that they get from like 2 to 4 years it's amazing when you really think about it. Just learning a language, learning how to ask for things, learning how to do things like walking, going to the bathroom. Just, it's those little things. And I think learn to appreciate that as much as you can. Learn to be in the moment. And it doesn't mean not working or not doing anything, but it's just, like we talked about, sometimes it's hard to see those moments because you're always worried about what's for dinner. You're worried about the next steps. And it's like sometimes you just have to let go and be in the moment. So definitely the biggest thing is be in the moment. Don't beat yourself up over mistakes. You're going to make a ton of mistakes. especially when it's your first child. And just be okay with it and learn from it and let go of your ego. For me, like I brought up earlier, I think that was like the biggest thing was ego isn't just, oh, you have to drive yourself, you have to be better, you have to be great. But it's also, like I said, for me, it was like projecting my own insecurities on my son. Like seeing them go down the paths that I did and just knowing that they're individuals and, they're not going to be perfect. But be okay with it. Like you said, not just for them and what you're doing, but just, your relationships and how you feel. But just enjoy it. I mean, it's by far the hardest. I don't ever like calling it a job. I don't think parenthood's a job. It's not. It's its own thing. It's the most amazing thing you can do. And don't forget that it's your kid. You have more influence on that person than you realize.
Right. Like you said, they're reflections of you.
Yeah, 100%. It's scary sometimes how much they are. And then there's the biological part. I mean, they're just like you. They're literally half of who you are. And then when you have your influence over them, you're just going to see these things where it's amazing. My oldest son is this really weird mixture of my wife and I, like 50-50. And it's always usually a clash of things. My middle son is like 70% my wife and 30% me. And then the youngest is the opposite. But it's amazing how you see them grow as individuals. But enjoy that process of them becoming adults. Because in the end, that's, again, like I said earlier, that's what you're kind of hoping for is get them adulthood and make them happy adults. But don't forget the process. Just enjoy it while you can, as much as you can.
Those are really, really good points. And I think
Yeah.
personally for me, I learned a lot today too from you, especially with my boys about being in that high school age and stuff.
Yeah.
So really thank you for sharing everything
Oh.
with us and specifically sharing everything with me. And I really, really appreciate it. Thank you.
There's the good parallels. It's always good when you have that similar experiences.
Yeah. So thank you so much. And I hope you have a great rest of your week.
You too.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Take care. Thank you so much for joining us today on Parenthood Bites. We hope you found our episode informative and entertaining. If you're a parent in the tech world or know someone who is, we'd love to hear from you. Please reach out to us at chow@parenthoodbites.co, and we'll be thrilled to add your experiences to our interviews. That's chow, CHIAO, @parenthoodbites.co. And to our potential sponsors out there, if you're a business or know of one that would like to support and partner with our podcast, please don't hesitate to get in touch. You can also reach us at chow@parenthoodbites.co. Thank you once again for tuning in, and we wish you a fantastic rest of your week. Until next time, take care and stay curious.